and welcome to healthyhouseplants.com, where we teach you all about gardening in the great indoors. Today's video is sponsored by our Amazon affiliate link, which you'll see in the description below. Also in the description below, you'll see links to other videos that I mentioned in this video, including the rest of this series. This is part 5 of our series on repotting. And this is the star of our repotting series here, Marvin. So say hi to Marvin. He is a Dracaena fragrans, also known as a corn plant, and he really needs the repotting, as we ascertained in one of the first video in this series. So we have also been preparing things for him in the prior videos as well. So in this video, I am going to do the actual repotting process. And one thing you can do before too, have on hand as well, which we didn't have in the last video, but it's good to have some pruners on hand in case you need them. I'm going to take off this little tip of his that got a little brown. Brown leaf tips is another video that I have, and what to do about them as well. Okay, so he is ready to roll here. One more leaf tip there. Okay, so now I am going to get him. Now he was well watered in the prior video so that he is ready for the repotting. That's part of getting ready. So now you need to get him out of the plant pot. I do have a video on how to get a plant out of a pot. If you can't get it out, there's some various things you can do, which hopefully we won't have to do today, but you never know. One of those. So you want to be careful. You may have to put the plant on the edge of a table and wrap lightly until the plant comes out, which it's not doing. So I think I'm going to have my helper go get me a knife, and we want a knife that bends so that, and another thing you can do is gently push through the drainage hole with a pencil or something that size. And if we can try this knife, it may not work, because what's nice is one of those bendable knives, the bigger knives, but I don't know that I have one in here. I may have it in my shed. So you can also loosen things up. And another thing to keep in mind, if the plant is really stuck like this, that's usually another indication that, oh, it's a good thing that I'm repotting this plant right now, because it really needs it. Because being stuck in the pot is another indicator. What happens is that it gets so full of roots that the roots cling to the side of the pot. So you want to carefully go around, and a knife, one of those knives that kind of curve with a pot side works well, but if you don't have that, you can try a butter knife, as I'm doing right now. I'm going to go down to the bottom. So basically you're loosening the plant's grip. It kind of looks like, oh my gosh, it's kind of crazy, things are going on here, and it does feel kind of crazy, but you have to get it out of the pot somehow. If you have a plastic pot, you can, and it's not a pot that you're really enamored with, you can go ahead, and it's a stuck one. And also the watering prior does help with this. Obviously it didn't help him a lot, but another thing you can do with plastic, if you're not attached to the plant, to the pot, is you can cut it with really good scissors, the outside of the pot, and then you can slip the plant out that way. But I really, really like this glazed ceramic pot. I think it's a very cool one. So I am not really wanting to do that today. I don't want to break this pot. So I'm going to continue. So this is something to keep in mind. This can happen. Good thing I'm getting him out of the pot. He may never have left if I didn't get this done. Okay, let's hope that he comes out now. Okay, I'm going to put him, we're losing a lot of soil, but that's okay. We're going to be replacing soil. Come on, Marvin. Jeez. Okay, he came out. Yay! So now I'm going to gently finish the tugging. We got a little wild going on there, but it had to be done. So don't worry too much. Obviously, you don't want to do this every day to your plant. Okay, now, so we can see he's got some good root mass going on. That was all wound inside. The good news is I'm looking inside, there isn't too much root left in there, so we did okay with the knife. But you do want to go as gently as you possibly can. I was going a little rougher because I'm sure you guys don't want to watch me do that all day, but it's still okay. So now, as I talk about in the other video, one of the other videos is choosing the right size pot. And you can choose it ahead of time, which is obviously ideal because you want to be ready to repot. But have on hand, if you can, other pots just in case the size you've chosen is not the right size. Okay, so I think that this is going to be the right size, however, because what I'm looking for is a 2/3 plant to 1/3 pot combo, and that looks like that is the case with this. This pot may be a teeny tiny bit, a little teeny tiny bit bigger than than I would like, but I mean, we're only talking about maybe a half a size, so I'm not really, they come in one size up or 1 to 2 inches up, so it would be difficult to find it a teeny tiny smaller, but I think it'll be fine because, especially because it's got a good root mass. Now, if you get the plant out there and you find out so say this root mass was half that amount, I'm going to need to either repot him in this one with new soil, because maybe the soil has broken down. That's a possibility. You may find that. So if you do think, oh geez, there's not as much roots as I thought was going to be in there, remember you need the roots. You don't want a small amount of roots in a lot of wet soil, because what will end up happening is the soil will stay wet and it will cause the plant to root rot. So you do need to look at not only the top in terms of 2/3, 1/3 pot combo, but at the root zone itself to make sure that it makes sense to go into the size pot that you're putting into. You may find sometimes too that the root zone is a lot more impacted than you thought. If that's the case, you can run your fingers along it gently and break the roots up a little bit, because what you were doing by doing that is you're getting the roots themselves ready to make contact with the soil and then begin to grow. If you don't do that a little bit, I don't need to do this with him because they're all kind of broken up and growing here and there, but you've seen those plants where you take them out and it's just massive roots all the way around, very thick. Then you do want to either with your fingers, or if you need to, you can scratch along the side with something sharp like pruning shears or a knife, just a little bit to break it up, so that the plant will then, when you repot, make really good contact with the soil and start growing a lot faster than it would if it was just staying. If you have it all compacted, it may just continue to grow like that and not make contact with the soil. So keep that in mind as well. Now, say you get it out and the roots in terms of the pot are just you're going to be cramming the plant and its root mass into the pot that you've chosen. Then you do need to go a little bit bigger on the pot itself. Don't want to go a lot bigger. You want to leave probably about 1 inch all the way around of new soil, because if you go much bigger than that, what's going to happen once again is you're setting the plant up for possible root rot and then failure. Okay, so this one is going to get, now if I stick it in here, I see I'm going to have about 1 inch to 1.5 inches all the way around, and about the same on the bottom. That's another thing. You want about 1 inch to 2 inches of soil on the bottom of the pot when you put soil in. So you want to put the soil in first. This has been, I'm going to set him down gently. This has been pre-moistened. It has been, I have added ingredients to it, including my Green Gourmet Houseplant food and some pumice, which I also carry. And this is ProMix BX, which I talked about in the prior video in terms of choosing soil. I really like this soil. So I'm going to put in, like I said, about between 1 inch. You want a minimum 1/2 inch on the bottom, but really that's even too, so a minimum really of 1 inch on the bottom, depending on how big. If you're talking about a little pot, you could have 1/2 inch on the bottom. But bigger plants like this, at least 1 inch, if not 2 inches of soil. So put about that much and then set it in. Gently work the roots in. Now, what you want to do in terms of where the plant is sitting in the pot, and I have another video on what happens when you plant too deep. What happens is that it can create a very moist environment for pests and diseases. Pests like to burrow in there, like mealybugs and things that like it nice and moist. And then also root rot can set in because there's not enough air circulation. So you want the top of the soil here to be about 1/4 of an inch below the inside rim. So that way when you water, the soil will go in nicely, it won't overflow, but at the same time the plant is elevated enough to where it is at a nice height to not have pests and diseases, and also because you want to give the plant as much good new soil as you can so that you won't be repotting in another few months, and it will continue to grow really nicely until it's time to be potted up next. So I've got it in there. I'm pretty happy. I'm going to add a little bit more to the bottom. Check again. Now I'm thinking, okay, this is good because I am going to be patting down some so you can eyeball it up so you can see what's going on there. Now I'm going to start to add more soil. So you're going to want to, when you're adding the soil, what you want to do is you want to add evenly around the part on the sides where there isn't soil so that you keep the plant in the center of the pot. If you finish repotting and you look, oh geez, it's on the side of the pot, it doesn't look too good, you can repot. You can gently remove and start again if necessary. So you want to make sure when you're doing this, gently but firmly push down on the plant on the sides here to make sure you're filling in that empty space there, because what happens if you don't do that is you will create air pockets. The air pockets what will happen is the roots will die back in that area where there's air pockets because the roots aren't in contact with soil. You do want, as I have mentioned, to have some air at the root zone, but not too much. So in the air, you're going to get air by having well-draining soil. So things like this pumice give you just the right amount of air at the root zone. Okay, so I'm going to continue to do this until, and I'm going to push down as I go, like I said. So what I'm going to do is until I get to the right point here in terms of just under 1/4 inch or so under the rim of the pot. And you want the soil on the top here of the pot here as even as possible. So because what happens if the plant is up higher and then the soil, when you water, the water will go around the edges and it won't get to right around the stem of the trunk of the plant, and then it won't distribute the water evenly throughout the pot. You'll just have water around the edges of the pot, and then the roots won't get enough water. So I'm doing that, patting down. Now this was pre-moistened soil, as I mentioned, I believe, and I know I mentioned in the prior one on getting ready. So it is pre-moistened, but even after I water, it's going to sink a tiny bit, but not much. If it wasn't pre-moistened, it would be sinking way too low, and then you would have to add more soil and maybe even repot, which you probably want to avoid. Okay, so now done that and got it at a good level. Like the way it looks. I'm looking at it. It really looks nice. 2/3, 1/3, pretty good there. Now you want to water right after you do pot up a house plant. You could walk away for a few minutes, but overall you really just want to remember to rewater. So one thing you can use is something like, this is a Jump Start. There's other ones. There's other good, and these are basically to prevent root transplant shock, gives them a little bit of vitamin boost. It's Super Thrive is another one that's been on the market for many years that I also use. So it just helps with transplant shock. Now, do you have to have this? No, you don't. So if you don't have it, that's fine. Don't worry about it. But if you do, go ahead and use it. So I'm adding a tad, according to directions, to the water that I'm going to be using here to water. And this plant's name is Marvin, so I'm going to be watering Marvin, who is going to be a lot happier in this bigger pot. He's been drying out every day because his pot was way too small. The other one, not way too small, but had become too small. So I am watering him. You want to water, this is tepid water. Warm water is also okay, not hot water, but warm to tepid water. I have a video on why you want to do that as well. So you don't, that's another good way to shock the plant roots would be to use really cold water or really hot water, which would be damaging. Now, you can see it's kind of coming up a little bit because it's filling up, so you can also go in and push down a little bit after you water to get it to the right level. If you find that you put a little too much soil in, then you can take a little bit off. You can always put more soil on later, which is called top dressing, which I had just another video on. If say, you know, it gets a little low, you can do some top dressing. But this looks like it's at a good level. So I am going to water more. And what you want to do is you want to water until the water comes out the bottom of the pot. That tells you you've soaked the plant really, really well. And another thing I really like to do, because you think you're going to remember these things and then you don't, and that is labeling the plant. So I had a label, which I seem to have buried somewhere. I can bring it into the next video as well, but it appears to be missing. So on that video, on that label, I put, it's a white label, so it's blending in here. And you will make a mess when you repot, so make sure to put down lots of things for the repotting. Newspaper, sheets, etc. Okay, so what I put on there on the label, which you can see in the next video because I will find it before I start that video, and that is I put the name of the plant, which obviously I know the name of the plant, but say someone's coming along and they want to know the name of your plant, then they get to see it. And then also on that label I put the date, so I know the date that Marvin here was replanted. And also I put so I put the type of soil that I use, which is ProMix BX, and I added some of my Green Gourmet houseplant food when I planted, and I added a little bit of pumice, and I added a little bit of worm castings. So I put all of that on the label itself, so I know, so say 3 months from now, when Marvin's doing great, I can say, geez, what did I do? And I can look at the label and say, oh, okay, well, I'm getting ready to repot something else. I think I'll use the same mix. Or maybe you don't do all those things, and you think, next time I'm gonna try adding worm compost so that I can compare results. So there you go, he is looking good, and we will see you on the next video in terms of aftercare for after repotting. So thank you for stopping by today. Please leave any comments about any indoor gardening tutorials you'd like to see, and remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video.